Hi, I'm Eric Schaffer, and I'm the founder of Human Factors International. And if you're thinking about doing a digital transformation program, you've got some pretty serious risks. There may be some day when you go, my programmers really destroyed my wonderful strategy. And when you see the results from the thousands of digital transformation projects that are happening globally, they're terrible. And they're terrible for an interesting reason. People will say they're terrible because the customer experience didn't end up being what I intended. And they're right. You come up with a business strategy, and that business strategy you spend a lot of time on. You get in consultants, you do spreadsheets, you do presentations on it, and you're very clear on the business strategy. And then what ends up being created isn't really what you intended. You can't go in there and design the screens yourself, or if you try to, you're going to find it's not fun and not easy. But when your customer experience metrics come in, you're going to find the net promoter scores, the satisfaction scores, the conversion rates, the bounce rates, they don't look good. Whatever kind of system it is, whether it's an internal system, employee engagement isn't happening, you may have a whole set of different kinds of problems. And you've measured them, but something bad happened in the middle. And just measuring those customer experience metrics doesn't manage it. And that's really the key. There is an activity that happens between your strategy and the programming that usually doesn't get done properly. And that activity is user experience engineering. It's an engineering discipline based on design science. The people who do that work, they don't do it successfully because they're passionate about users or they love users or something like that. They do it because they understand the billions of dollars of research. So just like if you want a bridge built, you better get a civil engineer who knows something about tensile strengths and the research that's been done over 100 years on alloys. Same thing. In the user experience space, we need to understand all the research done on how humans function. Then there's a methodology. It isn't something like you just take a UX practitioner and they walk in, they spray usability dust somewhere, right? There is a defined process that's been built up over generations that say, how do we go about, what are the things that we do to take that gap between your strategy and what's being programmed and solve that solidly? There's a very high level of that. Things like pervasive information architecture, which would say that if you're a bank and you're talking in your website about transact, invest, borrow, insure, when you go to your branch, you shouldn't talk about it differently. There shouldn't be a loan officer. You have a desk which is a borrowing desk, right? You keep the same language, the same sequence throughout. That kind of high-level omnichannel alignment is very critical. Then there's the actual design work. So to give you a sense, you start with what is that executive intent? That is the input into it. What you're saying as your strategy goes into the design, but then you have to model who are the users. What is their ecosystem like? What are their characteristics like? And that drives directly into the design, right? This is not something done by a programmer. It's something done by UX engineer, right? And you can look at an existing design and say, I now know the scenarios. What is the user going to do? How's it going to play out? So the first thing I want to do is know how much I owe and how to pay it. And so I have to take this number, add it to this number, and I pay it down here. That's not so good, right? Or if I want to know how much data I've used, that's all in one place. That's better. or I might want to know what I can get, what upgrades and so on. And that's spread all over the screen. Not so good. Self-service, it's at the very top, it's at the bottom, it's across. So when I see something like this, I go, okay, that's not going to work well for the customer. And the key thing that we're trying to do is go, this is the way the website is designed. This is the way the organization may be thinking about it. But there's a deep mental model that the user has that is likely to be different. And I get that by research. I do research to find that out. There are methods like CardSort that help me do that. And then I can design around that. So I know I want to know what I owe. So I have an area on that. I want to know how much data I've used. So I have an area on usage. I want to know what my offers and upgrades are. I want to know how to get self-service. So this process I'm showing you in a minute, but it may take 6 weeks or 8 weeks. But this is what makes it fit with what the user's doing, right? Then I can take the data and put it in, and I start to put in the activities that they're doing. And then I can graphically treat it. And I have a design that fits with the user, that's taking from your strategy or objectives and driving it into that structural design. And I may have mobile and all that. Sure, right? I then have to work even deeper. This is, and we do a lot of this work remotely now. I'm talking with a team in India, and we're working on design. And so down to the level of things like you will be now redirected to, you just say you will go, or we have received your request for the general purpose card. You just say your card, right? Beyond that kind of making it usable, making it easy to use thing, there's also an aspect of the emotional design. And in that emotional design, we have to pay attention not just to whether people can do the task, but will they want to? And that's true for employees, it's true for B2B, it's certainly true for B2C. Are they engaged? Are they connected? Are they persuaded? And funny things can happen. This is a great case. It's pretty new, right? And if you look at those funnels, when we redesigned the Tata Sky site, we went from 4 steps to sign up to 7 steps. And you might think, oh, it's going to be worse. But we use techniques like compliance laddering and commitment in order to get people into conversion. And that persuasion, emotion, and trust measures that we used resulted in 243% increase in sales. So you can see you have to make it easy to use. You also need to make it compelling and persuasive. So there is a technology of how to do this. It's about having people that are skilled. It's also about having a practice, not just people, but an operation within your organization whose job is to jump through that gap and go, this is your strategy, this is what's going to be programmed. We're going to drive that in omnichannel strategy, in structural design, in detailed design, and in persuasion engineering. So if you're interested in this, drop us a line, hfi@humanfactors.com. And we have a great white paper that you might enjoy about digital transformations and making sure that you don't have these kind of train wrecks that have become so common.